Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. Ketamine therapy for depression.
Yeah, it's really gained a lot of attention, especially for those who haven't, found relief from traditional antidepressants.
Right, those folks who've kind of hit a wall with the usual treatments. And what's really got me curious is how fast it seems to work.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that makes ketamine so intriguing. Unlike traditional antidepressants, which can take, weeks or even months to really have an effect, ketamine can have an impact on moods sometimes within hours.
Yeah, that rapid response is mind-blowing. And to understand how that works, we're looking at this study. It examines how ketamine affects brain activity in people with bipolar disorder and depression,
Yeah.
specifically those folks who are in a major depressive episode.
Right. And it's important to point out this wasn't just some lab experiment. The study looked at people in a real world setting like a hospital. These were individuals who'd already tried a bunch of other treatment options, you
Yeah.
know?
So these were folks who really needed a different approach, and they were getting ketamine infusions twice a week for a month.
Exactly. And during one of these sessions, they used EEG, that stands for electroencephalography, to track their brain activity.
EEG. That sounds pretty high tech. Is it kind of like taking a peek inside the brain to see what's happening?
You got it. It's like listening in on the electrical conversations between brain cells, giving us a window into how ketamine is actually working its magic.
So they're essentially eavesdropping on the brain during these ketamine sessions. What did they find out? I mean, did ketamine actually change anything in the brain?
Oh, definitely. They found that ketamine caused some noticeable changes in brainwave patterns, both in the regular rhythms and those more complex non-rhythmic ones.
Okay, so brainwaves changing. That sounds interesting, but what does it actually mean? Like, why are those changes significant?
Well, think of it this way. These brainwave changes aren't just random fluctuations. They actually reflect shifts in how the brain is working.
Okay, I'm listening.
For example, they found that ketamine reduced the power of slower brainwaves, like delta, theta, alpha, and low beta, while boosting those faster gamma waves.
So is it kind of like ketamine is changing the tempo of the brain's music,
Mm-hmm.
going from a slow, mellow beat to something faster and more energetic?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great way to put it. And this shift towards those faster brainwaves is believed to be connected to how ketamine increases brain activity, which might be a key player in its antidepressive effects. It's almost like jump-starting a car battery that's gone flat. Ketamine could be providing the energy that the brain needs to break free from those negative thought patterns, those kind of stuck patterns that you see with depression.
Wow. So it's not just about shifting someone's mood. It's about actually changing how the brain functions at like a fundamental level. That's pretty incredible.
It is pretty remarkable, and there's even more to it. The paper also mentioned how ketamine impacts the fractal nature of brain activity.
Fractals, now, those are those intricate patterns you see in nature, right? Like the branches of a tree or a snowflake.
You got it. And it turns out our brain activity also has those fractal-like qualities.
So is ketamine like rearranging the brain's fractals or something?
In a way, yes. The study found that ketamine seems to smooth out those fractal patterns in brain activity. Think of it like taking a crumpled piece of paper and gently flattening it out. It's not about getting rid of all the wrinkles, but making them less prominent, more streamlined.
Oh, I see. So it's like ketamine is helping the brain become more flexible and adaptable, maybe breaking free from those rigid thought patterns.
Precisely. And that increased flexibility could be super important for overcoming those negative thought loops that often come with depression. It's like creating new paths in a forest. Ketamine might help the brain explore new ways of thinking and processing information, leading to a more, open and hopeful perspective.
That's really interesting. Now, this paper also mentions something called brain entropy. What is that? Does it mean my brain gets like messy on ketamine?
Not messy exactly, but more complex. Entropy, in this context, means the level of complexity or randomness in brain activity. Imagine this. A simple melody with just a few notes has low entropy, but a full orchestra playing a symphony has high entropy. And ketamine seems to increase that complexity, particularly in those faster brainwaves we talked about.
Oh, so like more instruments in the brain's orchestra, more layers to the music of the mind.
Exactly. More instruments, more variations, more possibilities. This increased complexity could be linked to ketamine's ability to open up new perspectives and ways of thinking, which, would be super valuable for someone struggling with those constricted negative thought patterns of depression.
Right. Instead of that one sad song on repeat, ketamine might be helping the brain compose a whole new symphony. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And you know what? This has already given me a lot to think about.
And we're just getting started. There's so much more to explore about ketamine's effects on the brain.
Yeah, it really opens up a whole new world of possibilities. When you think about how much we're learning about the brain and its ability to change, especially when it comes to depression. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's like we're rewriting the rules of mental health treatment.
Hmm.
And, one thing that really struck me about this study was that it took place in a real-world clinical setting, not just a lab.
Right, exactly. And that makes a huge difference because many studies on ketamine are done, in controlled lab environments.
Yeah.
But this one was done in a hospital with patients who were also on the regular medications. So it gives us a much more realistic picture of how ketamine therapy might work for people out in the real world, you know?
Makes sense. I mean, a lab setting can be pretty artificial, but I'm guessing that doing research in a real-world setting also comes with its own set of challenges, right? Like, were there any limitations or complexities that the researchers had to deal with? Oh, for sure. The study acknowledges that things like other medications and, a person's past experiences with ketamine could influence how they respond to the treatment. It's a good reminder that we still have a lot to learn about ketamine and its long-term effects.
So it's not like a magic bullet, a quick fix for everyone.
No, not exactly. Ketamine therapy is still relatively new, and it's important to approach it with realistic expectations. It's a powerful tool with a lot of potential, but we definitely need more research, especially those long-term studies, to really understand the benefits and risks.
Right. And speaking of risks, I know there's been a lot of talk about the dissociative effects of ketamine, especially because it's sometimes used recreationally.
Yeah.
Is that something people should be concerned about when it's used in a therapeutic setting?
It's a valid concern and one that comes up a lot. While ketamine can cause those feelings of dissociation, that feeling of being detached from reality, those effects are usually temporary and carefully monitored during the therapeutic sessions.
Okay, so it's not like doctors are just sending patients off on a psychedelic trip without any supervision. What steps are taken to make sure that people are safe and comfortable during those
Oh,
experiences?
absolutely not. It's a very controlled environment in a therapeutic setting. There are medical professionals there the whole time to keep a close eye on the patients, and the dosage used in therapy is way lower than what people might use recreationally. Plus, the setting is totally different. It's not a party or a club. It's a calm, clinical setting designed for safety and well-being.
Okay, that's good to know. So they're taking precautions. Now, did the researchers in this study look into how these dissociative experiences might be related to the brainwave changes they observed? Like, was there any connection between feeling dissociated and those shifts in brain activity?
They did. They used a standard assessment tool called the KSS, that's the Clinician Administered Dissociative States Scale, to measure how intense those experiences were during the ketamine sessions.
Interesting. And what did they find? Did people who had more intense dissociative experiences also show bigger changes in their brainwaves?
Well, it was kind of mixed, actually. They found a few weak correlations between certain brainwave changes and specific aspects of dissociation, but nothing super strong or consistent, so it's definitely an area that needs more research.
Sounds like there are still some mysteries to solve about how ketamine works its magic in the brain. But before we get too deep into the technical stuff, can we take a step back and connect the dots for our listeners? Why should someone who's struggling with depression care about these brainwave changes? What's the big picture here?
That's the key question, right? These findings are important because they give us valuable insights into how ketamine works on a neurological level. They offer clues about the mechanisms behind those rapid antidepressive effects, which is really important for developing more targeted and effective treatments.
So it's not just about making someone feel better for a little while. It's about potentially changing how their brain works over the long term.
That's the idea. The research suggests that ketamine might be doing more than just relieving symptoms. It could actually be helping to reset and rebalance those brain circuits that are involved in regulating mood. And that could lead to more lasting improvements in depression.
That's really encouraging. But I'm sure, like any new therapy, ketamine has its limitations. What are some things that we need to be cautious about?
Well, for one thing, we need more research, especially those long-term studies, to really understand its long-term effects and the best ways to administer it. We still need to learn more about things like the optimal dosages, how often treatment should be given, and how to personalize treatment plans for different individuals, you know?
Right, because not everyone's brain is going to react to ketamine the same way. And that brings us back to one of the most interesting findings from this study, the difference in brainwave changes between those who responded to ketamine quickly, those early responders, and those who took a bit longer, the late responders.
Yeah, that was a surprising finding. Remember how the people who didn't experience immediate relief, those late responders, actually showed greater changes in their brainwaves compared to those who felt better right away?
Yeah, I remember. It seemed counterintuitive. Like you'd think that people who are feeling better would have more dramatic brain shifts. So what's the takeaway from that finding?
Well, it suggests that there's no one-size-fits-all response to ketamine. Different brains might process and react to it in unique ways, and those who take a bit longer to see the benefits might actually be going through more extensive rewiring behind the scenes.
So maybe some brains just need a little more time to catch up and make those positive changes. Does this mean we need to rethink how we measure the effectiveness of ketamine therapy?
It definitely highlights the need for more personalized approaches to treatment. Not everyone's journey with ketamine is going to look the same. And it underscores the importance of being patient and persistent, even if those initial improvements aren't obvious right away.
I'm sensing a theme here. More research, more personalized approaches, more understanding of individual differences. It
Yeah.
seems like the future of ketamine therapy is all about getting to know the brain on a much deeper level.
Absolutely. We're moving away from that one-size-fits-all model of mental health treatment and towards a more individualized approach that recognizes, the unique complexities of each person's brain.
It's pretty amazing to think that we're starting to unlock the brain's potential to heal and adapt in ways we never thought possible. This has been a really eye-opening discussion so far.
Yeah, it really feels like we're entering a whole new frontier in mental health treatment, especially for conditions like depression that have been so tough to treat effectively.
Absolutely. And what we're seeing with ketamine is really just one example of how much our understanding of the brain is changing. It's opening up all these new possibilities for healing and recovery. It's pretty exciting.
It really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into ketamine therapy, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to walk away with? Well, first, I really hope they come away with a sense of just how complex the brain is and how incredible its capacity for change really is. What this study shows is that ketamine isn't just some temporary fix for depression. It's a powerful tool that can trigger some really profound shifts in brain activity. It might even be able to rewire those neural circuits that are involved in mood disorders.
So it's not just about masking the symptoms. It's about actually getting to the root of the problem, the underlying neurological mechanisms that are driving the depression.
Exactly. All those changes in brainwaves we talked about, the shift towards faster rhythms, the smoothing out of those fractal patterns that increase in complexity, they all point to ketamine's ability to boost neuroplasticity. It's like giving the brain a little nudge in the right direction, helping it break free from those stuck patterns of negative thinking and, explore new, healthier ways of functioning.
So it's like ketamine's giving the brain a chance to hit the reset button, create a more adaptable and resilient foundation for mental well-being.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the second thing I want to emphasize is that everyone's brain is different. There's no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to ketamine therapy. The findings about those early and late responders really highlight how important it is to personalize treatment. We have to recognize that each individual is going to respond to ketamine in their own way and on their own timeline.
That makes a lot of sense.
Huh.
It's about finding the right dose of brain change for each person, right? Some brains might just need a little more encouragement to make those positive shifts.
Exactly. And lastly, I want to say again that while ketamine shows a lot of promise as a treatment for depression, it's still relatively early in the game. We need more research, especially those long-term studies, to really get a handle on its benefits and risks and how to use it most effectively. It's important to approach ketamine therapy with cautious optimism, I think. It's not a miracle cure, but it's a valuable tool that, when used responsibly and carefully, could be a game changer for a lot of people who are struggling with depression.
It sounds like the future of ketamine therapy is really about two things: deepening our understanding of the brain and embracing a more personalized approach to treatment. We need to move away from that one-size-fits-all model and really start to appreciate the unique needs of each individual's brain.
I couldn't agree more, and I think we're on the right track. The research on ketamine is opening up so many exciting new avenues for exploring the brain's potential for healing and adaptation. It's a powerful reminder that even when we're dealing with complex mental health challenges like depression, there's always hope for positive change and a brighter future.
That's a fantastic note to end on. This deep dive into ketamine therapy has been incredibly enlightening. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the brain's ability to adapt and heal, even when faced with some really tough challenges like depression.
Me too. It's an incredible time to be involved in mental health research.
No.
I have no doubt that we're going to continue making groundbreaking discoveries that will completely transform how we understand and treat these conditions.
Well, on that note of optimism and scientific curiosity, we're going to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery. We hope you've learned some valuable insights into the fascinating world of ketamine therapy for depression. Until next time, keep seeking knowledge and keep asking those important questions.